I suppose the most fascinating question in the whole world is, who am I? Or what am I? Because, as I've suggested in several of the previous talks, the seer, the knower, the one whom you are is the most inaccessible of all experiences, completely mysterious and hidden. And yet, we talk about our egos. We use the word I. And I've always been tremendously interested in what people mean by the word I, because it comes out in curious lapses of speech, like we don't say, I am a body. We say, I have a body. And somehow we don't seem to identify ourselves with all of ourselves. We say sort of my feet, my hands, my teeth, as if they were something somehow outside me. And as far as I can make out, most people feel that they are something or other about halfway between the ears and a little way behind the eyes, inside the head, and from this center the rest of them sort of dangles. And that governing principle in there is what you call the ego. And that's me. And I just can't get rid of the idea that that's a hallucination. That's not what you are at all. And it's a very dangerous hallucination, because it gives you the idea that you are a center of consciousness, of energy and responsibility that stands over against and in opposition to everything else. You're a chauffeur inside your own body, as if your body were an automobile, and you are the chauffeur principle inside it. But you feel caught in a trap because your body's kind of a mess. It gets sick, tired, hurts, and eventually wears out and dies. And you feel caught in the thing because you feel different from it. And you feel the world outside your body, furthermore, is an awful trap. It's full of stupid people who are sometimes nice to you, but mostly aren't, because they're all out for themselves like you are. And therefore, there's one hell of a conflict going on. And the rest of it, aside from people, is absolutely dumb. Animals, plants, mere vegetables, rocks, and finally behind the whole thing, blazing centers of radioactivity called stars. And out there, where there's no air, there's no place for a person to live. And so we have come to feel ourselves as centers of very, very tender, sensitive, vulnerable consciousness, confronted with a world that doesn't give a damn about us. And that therefore we have to pick a fight with this external world and beat it into submission to our wills. And so we talk about the conquest of nature. We conquer everything. We talk about the conquest of mountains like Everest, the conquest of space, the conquest of cancer, etc., etc. We're at war because inside we feel ourselves to be these lonely ego principles trapped in, somehow inextricably bound up with a world that doesn't go our way, unless somehow we can manage to force it to do so. Well, now, as I have said, I feel that this sensation of ourselves as an ego is a hallucination. And I feel, let me say, as against this completely false conception of ourselves as an ego inside a bag of skins, that what we really are is, first of all, we are the whole of our body. Beyond that, however, the body, although it is bounded by a skin, and I can say differentiate in a way between my outside and my inside, although is this part here outside or inside? I mean, it gets a little tricky there, doesn't it? But my body cannot exist except in a certain kind of natural environment. Obviously, it requires air, and that air must be at a certain temperature. It requires nutrition. It requires, therefore, that it be on a certain kind of planet, near a certain kind of warm star, spinning regularly around it in a harmonious and rhythmical way, so that life can go on. And all that arrangement is just as essential to the existence of my body as its own internal organs, as, say, my heart, my brain, my lungs, and so forth. So there really is no way of separating myself as a physical body from the natural environment in which I live. Now, that means that I, as a body, go with my natural environment in the same way exactly, say, that bees go with flowers. Bees look very different from flowers. The flower grows out of the ground, colors and perfumes the air. The bee is independent and buzzes around and flies. But where there are no bees, there are no flowers, and where there are no flowers, there are no bees. They go together. And in that sense, they make up a single system. Substitute for the word system, the word organism. A single life form, a single individual. Bees and flowers, however different they look. Now, naturally, my feet look very different from my head, because the strings joining them. And therefore, we say, well, it's all one, obviously. But yet they are very different, but they're both me. And the feet and the head, though different, are like the bees and the flowers. They go with each other. So, therefore, if I'm to define myself in a scientific way, I will find that if I am to make a clear description of my body, my organism, my behavior, and say what it's doing, I find that I cannot describe what my body is doing unless I also describe the surroundings, the environment in which it is doing it. In other words, it would be meaningless to describe myself as walking if I didn't describe the ground. Because if I didn't describe the ground, my description of walking would simply be of a person swinging his legs like this in the middle of empty space. That wouldn't be walking. I have to describe the ground in which I walk. So what I am is a transaction or an interaction between this organism and its surrounding environment, and they go together and they constitute what we call in physics a unified field, for which we at present have only the very awkward name organism environment. You know, put it all together. That's what I am, from a purely physical, scientific point of view. It may involve many more things than that, but so far is enough. I am an organism environment, but that's not what my ego feels like.